In this episode, a counterintuitive approach to creating openings that hook readers. Hi, I'm Jed Herne and this is Daily Writing Advice. So, you may have heard this idea from Brandon Sanderson before, author of the Mistborn series, author of the Stormlight Archive, probably my favorite author at the moment. And he has talked before about this idea of the character sliders. So essentially his idea is that to make compelling characters that are interesting for readers to follow, you need to consider three attributes. The first attribute is how likable they are. Do you actually want to spend time with them as a person? The second is how competent they are. How good are they at their job? And the third one is proactivity. How much are they out there going after the plot? How much are they driving things forward? And he discusses how to make compelling characters, you basically want to have one of those sliders not all the way at the top if the other two are topped up. Because if you have three all at their peak, you get the Superman problem, which is where you just have someone who is just too good. If, on the other hand, you only have one slider up and the other two down, so you have someone who's really likable but not very competent or proactive, or you have someone who's not very likable but is highly competent and highly proactive, then that'll be an interesting character to follow. But I think you can apply this to more than just character. I think you can apply this to the beginning of your novel. Because, as we all know, it's super important to try to hook readers in those initial couple of chapters. And considering this idea of likability, competence, and proactivity, that's actually a really useful metric to consider in that first chapter. So, for my money, I think what I like about really good openings in books, openings that make me stick through to the next chapters, particularly in books where I'm going in sort of cold and I don't necessarily have heard of the author before, or I don't, haven't had the book recommended to me by friends, is these are the things that I'm looking for. These are things I'm looking for in the book. So, is the character likable? Is in that opening scene there some sort of likability about the person we're following? This can be, a sympathetic person who's just an interesting, good human being. This can be someone who is likable because they are experiencing some sort of difficulty, whether that's as massive as they're on a spaceship, it's getting blown up, or if it's as micro as, they've run out of change, but they really need to get on the bus, and the bus driver won't let them on. So, likability, that's one factor that you can use in that opening chapter to really hook readers in. The second one is competence. One of the things I love reading about in books is just really competent characters who are an amazing firefighter, or an amazing sword fighter, or an amazing spaceship pilot, because those are things that I will probably never be very good at. So there's this vicarious thrill to quickly establishing in a book, I'm going to get to see this world through the eyes of an expert, through someone who really understands their craft, is good at it, and is very confident in it. So that's a second way that you can really hook readers with character in the first chapter, is by showing someone in their element, really doing something that is impressive and doing it well. And then the last way is proactivity. So this is probably the easiest one to get out of those three characteristics which I've described, because likability, there's maybe some subjectiveness to whether you like a character or not. Competence, I suppose that's fairly straightforward as to how you want that. But proactiveness, I think this is, for my money, the thing that makes the best first chapters. And, if not done correctly, the thing that makes the worst first chapters. Because there are a lot of chapters out there where it's really not following a proactive character. It's not really following someone who is making the plot happen. It's just following someone who's getting exposed to the plot. As much as I love Game of Thrones, which I thought I had over here, but I didn't. As much as I love the first game of A Song of Ice and Fire book, the first chapter doesn't really follow a massively proactive protagonist. And that's fine, because it is just a prologue. It's just designed to introduce you to some monsters that are in the book. But it would have been way more interesting for me if there was more proactiveness to this first character that we encountered, because then it tells me as a reader that I'm in the hands of an author who is going to expose me to these interesting characters who are actually going to go for things and actually going to drive the plot forward, and who will be interesting to follow because they're doing interesting things. So to recap this, consider in your opening chapters showing readers characters who are either likable, competent, or proactive. or preferably all of them. Well, maybe not all of them because that could create a Superman problem, like I said before, but you can consider combinations of these things. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I hope this has given you perhaps a new way to think about your opening chapters. And now it's your turn to go and write extraordinary stories. I'll see you next time.